O'clock, and we'll say the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We haven't met for a couple months and we have a new member here. So I'm going to start with Jean though. I want everybody to say your name. We don't have to go into your whole lifestyle or anything like that.
Can we use aliases or anything?
If you want, but then I have to correct it, so we'll just proceed on accordingly. And remember, we've got some people here with positions, public. So go ahead, Jean.
My name is Eugene Hansen. I live along I-90 where 43 goes south to Rushford.
Thank you.
John Nicholson. I live in New Hartford Township, right off of County 12, next to Dakota.
Marcia Ward, Winona County Commissioner. I live in rural Nodine. Been a county
enough.
commissioner a long time.
I'm Jordan Potter. I live in the city of Winona.
And I'm Mike Flynn. I live in Hillsdale Township.
Charlie Herber, rural Rolling Stone.
I'm Shep Osted, here out of Lewiston.
I'm Lynn Carlson. I live in town.
I'm Louis Ryman and I live in the western suburbs of Fremont Township.
And I want to introduce Shep. He's a new member,
Thank you.
and thank you for being on board. Appreciate your services.
Yeah. Great to be here.
You haven't been to a meeting yet, have you?
No, actually.
Well, then you might want to wait to say that part.
Oh, yeah,
Right.
fair point. Yeah.
In the month before too.
Yeah.
Any changes to the agenda or corrections or anything?
I move that we approve the agenda as posted or written or whatever.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
All right, Louis seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Okay, all in favor. Approval of the minutes is our next area. And before, I've got a couple minor corrections on the minutes. On line 287, 454, and 621, it just got crossed over. It's got Mark Clark, and you got to throw Mike Flynn in there, okay? And then that'll correct that. Anything else, anybody notice reading through the minutes?
Now, with those corrections, I'll move approval.
Okay, I'll second.
Second that. All in favor of approving the minutes with those minor corrections, say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Hearing none, all in favor. Updates, Board of Adjustments. Jordan, do you have anything?
Yeah, we had two petitions today. One, which we'll be hearing later, we approved a variance for building on steep slopes. And then the other was a bit of a property dispute that we granted a variance for a 1 foot setback from a property line, where a guy has to tear off a chunk of his shed.
All right.
That was an enjoyable
How
one.
big of a chunk does he have to tear off?
It was like 20, was it 22 feet?
I don't know where you're building.
Yeah.
Marcia,
County Board, I have to look back, way back in January. Everything that's come to the county board has been approved without any issues. And as I said to some of the people, we have a new planning director coming on board end of May. And I apologize. It was Eric. Eric, do you remember it?
Douglas.
Yeah, Douglas Czak. And so end of May, he'll be on board, and I'm sure we will indoctrinate him into the ways of Winona County, correct?
okay, anything else?
No.
Okay, we're going to move on to our petitions. And the first one is docket PC 04-1824-01. And this is to consider the petition of Dakota Sun LLC and Richard Brown, who will seek a conditional interim use of a permit regarding to operate a solar energy system in a commercial capacity in accordance with the Winona County ordinance sections 10 0.4, 0.6, 0.37. And I believe, Aaron, you got this one?
Do, yes. Hello, everyone. As Chairman Flynn just stated, request is for a large scale solar energy system. Coming forward from Dakota Sun LLC on behalf of landowner Richard Brown. The system would be a 0.5 megawatt community solar garden, which consists of 1,044 panels. The layout would lay atop of 3.5 acres approximately, and the racking would track with the sun. What is a community solar garden? Sounds like this body is somewhat familiar with them. There's probably others that have been permitted in Winona County, but it's a concept facilitated and approved by the legislature in 2013, whereby customers subscribe to a central facility. It allows folks who do not have perhaps replacement space on their own property to buy into a solar energy system. And it's a mandated option for Excel customers. Other utilities can choose to participate. Zoning information. So the underlying zoning district is the Agricultural Resource Conservation District. The only other overlay that would apply in this case is the area of high archaeological probability. And you see that overlay there in the yellow hash. Large overlay along the Mississippi River. You see the parcel in question, that's the 20-acre parcel outlined there in turquoise. And then you see the red polygon that represents the actual location of the service. The pathway through the ordinance to permit a project like this. It's a conditional use within the Ag Recreational Conservation District. 37 solar energy systems subject to standards in Chapter 9. We'll move to Chapter 9. We have standards for fencing, screening, and landscaping. We have standards for soil erosion and sediment control. And we have standards for solar energy systems that all apply. Then, as we progress through the ordinance, we find in Chapter 11 where we have the archaeological sites and burial grounds overlay requirements. And then in addition to the solar energy system requirements in Chapter 9, we have somewhat redundant, but also somewhat expanded upon standards in solar energy systems, Chapter 12. Site characteristics. This project is proposed in New Hartford Township. As I said, it's a 20-acre parcel, give or take. And the actual project would impact 3.5 acres, give or take. It is sandwiched between Interstate 90 and a county road, right where 61 and 90, the confluence of those two roads, where you would merge onto the westbound lane of Interstate 90. Proposed in a location that was prior agricultural use. Also, you'll notice there are a handful of homes in the vicinity of the proposal. There is a setback for homes to the proposal. It's proposed in a location that satisfies that setback. Similar view here, while we're looking at slopes. So you'll see the key up there gives us the colors for the various slopes as they coincide with the various restrictions or regulations within the county zoning ordinance. The location itself is proposed on slopes 12% under, surrounded by a lot of slopes, a lot steeper than that, as we're just seeing along the Mississippi River bed. Permitting history, this is a hayfield. There's an ag building on it. It was presumably built before permits were required for ag buildings. So there are no permitting records for this particular parcel. This parcel is suspected to have been split off of parent parcel at some point. Those records are very difficult to understand in Winona County, and it takes a lot of staff time to work through those because there's not much of a bearing on this particular request. That work was not done. We did receive a township acknowledgement form indicating no comments from New Hartford Township. Recommendation. So consider all the application materials and the testimony before making findings that support your decision. Staff has provided analysis, guidance for drafting findings, and the county attorney's office has prepared you draft findings for your consideration. And should the committee recommend approval, the county attorney's office has proposed conditions that would go along with that. Questions for me?
Was there, I got a little bit lost in all the information we got here. Was there a soil class for that parcel?
There is.
Yeah, as did I, there's a lot of information on verbiage that we put out there, related to solar systems in Winona County. There is a requirement that they submit a map showing what the soil class, and that's the non-irrigated capability class is. There's not a regulation that states that it needs to be a certain, so we just need to identify that in our application.
Do we have
Page
The-
89
89?
shows percentages, not
Okay.
necessarily a map of the class.
When was the last time it was used for farmland?
When I did my site inspection, it looked like it was in corn last year.
I can verify that.
Yeah, I drove by there too.
A question.
Go ahead.
You have listed petitioner, Dakota Sun LLC, and then Richard Brown. You are proposing this be a conditional use permit. Person to be held responsible for any of this would be Richard Brown, correct? Not the Dakota Sun.
It would be Dakota Sun on behalf of Richard Brown. So in the application, they did provide the owner's acknowledgement form, or maybe I'm not using the correct term there, but the signatures of the fee owners of the parcel. But the applicant is identified as the Dakota Sun, and they would operate it, is my understanding.
I have some angst with that because the way I was educated many years ago, a conditional use permit goes with the landowner. So we deal with the landowner here in Winona County, not some corporation, and I think this gentleman must represent them, not some corporation that can buy and sell, any of these projects and be here today and gone tomorrow, and we have no idea who we're working with. So I see legal, Mr. Krantz sitting there. I'm questioning if this is how we should be doing this, listing these people as the primary and appearing to hold them responsible when, again, a conditional use permit goes with the land and they're not the landowner.
I mean, that's a valid point in terms of the running of the land. I think the issue probably that proposed on is implementing the project and has the expertise to react and respond to what Good Fountain was asking them to do.
It's similar to what you'd see for a rock quarry, where I've seen many come forward where the applicant is, for instance, burning rock or Matthew Construction, but they're not the fee holder of the land, so that it's on behalf of that landowner. I think this is the way that it has historically been done in the county, and that the extensive application package that the county provides to folks who are interested in exploring this permitting option has within it a condition that we are indicating we commonly apply that says that if the point of contact or something to that effect changes, they need to notify the county within X number of hours, or I'm sorry, X number of days. Yeah.
Again, but that doesn't give me any feeling of comfort because we're dealing with an issue right now, which I think is wrong with a previous application. So I guess at some point in time, I would like maybe a little bit more research to say that, again, the conditional use permit is with the landowner, not, and Dakota Sun can be, secondary or responsible for all the technical and stuff. But, and I don't know if the landowner understands that is their responsibility, not to pass it off to another company that comes in and I'm sorry, promises them all this stuff. And we know sometimes those promises aren't true and held.
Yep.
Future.
if you would.
One thing I want to say is that I didn't review in the landowner and Dakota Sun, and probably that is where things like whether they would stand in for the landowner if something came up, or what their responsibility that was towards the landowner when the county wants something, might be contained in that document.
I have a question for the legal. Are there any like bonding measures or instruments that keep the landowner or the company that's working with through this conditional use invested in a potential cleanup effort on any of these sites that should say go belly up, or should the business that's working through this conditional use no longer exist?
The terms of the conditional use permit, regardless of what if it's labeled, what it's under, it's going to come back to the property if there's an issue. So they would ultimately still be responsible, probably in the agreement they have with Dakota Sun. Dakota Sun has agreed to protect them from monetary costs. And I don't know the specific with a project like this as far as cleanup afterwards, but again, whatever those are. State laws for projects like this.
Condition 8 would be page 37 of the packet. It calls out a $30,000 escrow to cover decommissioning.
See, I thought we required a bond for them.
We've discussed increasing it as well. I thought.
And then I guess just a question to you, do you make conversation with the applicant about like just your general and good faith that you're standing by the investment that you're putting in their property? Like, is that a conversation that you're having with them?
With the
Brown?
or
Yeah, with the landowner. My apologies. Thank you for clarifying.
Yeah, I don't believe there's been any direct interaction with Brown and the zoning office for this application. Other than we received the signed form that the owner signed a form saying they consent to it, but they've never interacted with us.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Louis, go ahead.
Do you know the construction method they're using, if they're using just pounding the I-beams in, or are they using cement bases?
That'd be a great question for the representative here, but I believe they've indicated that should the use permit be approved, they would do a technical investigation, and based on that, they would determine the foundations that are needed for the system.
Because what I'm going about is that if you gotta pull cement out or concrete, that costs a lot more money than just pulling some I-beams out. $30,000 ain't gonna cover pulling a lot of cement.
With other projects that we've authorized for solar, what has been the pattern? Like, I know we will have one in Stockton area. It's a little larger than this one. And the decommissioning and that particular one, I think it had a lifespan of 23 years. And then at that point in time, petitioner, along with My Energy in that case, they're basically on a lease basis. So in that case, the owner of the property is the one that really, like Marcia, you alluded to, well, who's got the conditional use? Well, it's really the landowner. Because if the other one is abandoned, then he would have the ability, if they buy and sell it, to continue on. But the reclamation of whatever that Louis is getting at, I don't have a lot of information that I found in the document. And when the petitioners come up, they'll help us out with that, I'm sure. Any other questions from the commission? Go ahead.
Do we have any requirements through ordinance about glare? Is that a concern as we see it in this project?
Not to my knowledge, because they move and stuff, but we are sensitive when they look at sites that they do their research on that, so it isn't focusing right in your living
Well,
room, for
especially like
example.
on an interstate, especially.
and
Is that
cooking
something
your
you can
dinner.
speak to?
There's a finding that needs to be satisfied with concerns
Yeah.
of glare. There's a proposed finding, yes, that you can consider They did indicate that they reached out to the DOT. The DOT does not have concerns about the interstate. We did provide notice to the county DOT. They did not have concerns beyond the necessity of a driveway permit if they put a new driveway in. To Chairman Flynn's point at the fact that they rotate and the fact that the land, if there is no major differences between the roads.
Can't see
I imagine the tracking is
Find, you know,
east to west, so it's more or less parallel to the interstate at that point.
Can't see that.
And as Aaron pointed out, this location is low, way low.
The interstate's only one direction, and that is where
It splits between.
you only have.
I'm not as familiar with where this is located.
West of that.
And there is a lot of information for the commission to go through. And rather than do page by page, thank you for your information. Is there anybody else who needs anything from Aaron? Because I really like the petitioner to help us out on some of these questions, because I think they might have answers to them.
Thank you.
You're not leaving though. We might bring you back. You know the protocol. With that, well, I'm going to ask the petitioners who wishes to come up and speak. And when you come up, just state your name and address. Okay?
My name's Colin O'Neill, South Minneapolis.
Do you have more specific?
Oh,
I need your address for the record.
3857 42nd South Minneapolis.
All right. And then enlighten us on the project.
Yeah, so we're proposing a just under 4-acre solar garden, half a megawatt solar garden on the Falmouth property. That's in between Interstate 90 and County Road 101. The size of the system, just for scale, would cover about 100 to 150 homes a year. And I guess, there were questions about flare and other items that I can talk about. There is existing trees on the east, south, and west side of the property that really block or limit visibility. And we do propose in our landscaping plan adding additional vegetation on the north and northeast side to block any visibility from County Road 101. We did reach out to some Department of Transportation, which indicated no additional studies or anything with glare was.
Can you clarify if this will be a purchase of the site or just a lease of the site, or what are the terms of the
Yeah.
property?
It's a great question. It's a long-term lease agreement that would go anywhere from 25 to 40 years.
But you don't have anything specific, just a general range?
As far as, well, it really depends on the equipment. So the solar equipment that we're using is warranted for anywhere from 25 to 30 years, but we can see a general life expectancy sometimes up to 40. And so it really just depends on how well it's producing in years, say 25 or 30. So the lease goes for 25 years, and then there's 3 additional 5-year extensions, just depending on the equipment itself.
And that, I think, was what Louis was getting at as far as reclamation. What is the D time of this? And is the $30,000 even reasonable to decommission this? I can't remember what we had. The other ones are different size, so it isn't fair for me to compare those. All right.
I will mention, so we did submit a decommissioning plan. Computer froze, so I don't have the exact page for you, but I think we proposed a larger figure, and I believe that $30,000 was in the first year, and then there would be additional funding over time. That's the approach for the end of.
What construction method are you using for anchoring the posts? Are you gonna use a cement base or are you just gonna drive I-beams in? Like some,
Ideally, we would just drive beams in. As Aaron mentioned, there is some HPV done to confirm that, but that would be our.
So do these things just tip this way or do they Because we've had a couple that were proposed, remember, up on I-90, they stood upright and they were gonna,
They were gonna track the sun.
yeah, so you say a single access tracker, so does that mean they just tilt?
Yes, exactly. So we have sort of these long runs from north to south
Mhm.
of the racking.
Mhm.
And then the panels are sort of mounted like this and they will follow the sun.
Okay.
Throughout.
So they'll just tilt back and forth on
Yes,
that
yeah.
single access?
Yep.
Okay, Mr. Chair, if I can.
Yes.
Condition, recommendation, 9, the permittee shall provide proof of the interconnection agreement the project has with the electric utility before a development certificate is issued. We've had several similar solar things that they didn't have an agreement. And we jumped through all these hoops and have got here we don't have any angry neighbors, but we had angry neighbors and put up with a lot of distraught. So do you have a interconnection agreement?
Yes, we do. We signed it. And we'll actually send it tomorrow with Excel Energy.
So I'm very familiar with that area. Where is the nearest substation? Where do you hook up to?
I don't know. I think it's to the north. If I'm not mistaken.
At a substation in that valley.
Double check.
And see, that was part of the angst with one of these other particular ones, is that the substation was on the wrong side of I-90 and it was going to cost the petitioner $1 million to bring the line under I-90. So I don't think that project's ever going to happen. But I can't picture a substation in that whole, a long ways.
Yeah, I don't.
But you say you do have one.
We do have one. We've already received the, cost to upgrade the lines and to connect them to Excel's grid.
Okay.
And we've signed it and we'll fund it. And then additionally, as part of this process, this project, we're planning to submit to the new community solar program, which legislation was passed last summer. It's a new program administered by the Department of Commerce and that opened up this February. And our plan is to apply to that, which is already in progress as well. So
And you can probably provide that to me because, again, the county, as a county unit for our buildings, we subscribe to a community solar thing and it's not going well. Because of the Xcel Energy trying to change the rates and everything. So we're not going to save any, it's probably going to cost, well, I'm sorry. The school district had to have a very large payout. Luckily, we didn't have the same agreement, so the county isn't on the hook for, lots of extra dollars. So this is a new program so how does Xcel, with Xcel wanting to charge customers more at daytime rates, how does this affect a community solar garden? Is their rate affected then too?
yeah, so as part of the new program, one of the things is Xcel Energy now only handles interconnection. The Department of Commerce actually runs the program. And so part of it is we actually offer, discounted electric rates as part of this new program. So residential and LMI customers that subscribe to the garden will receive actually discounts that's cheaper than what they would pay Xcel Energy for the electricity. All while receiving the.
As Xcel gets a rate increase, what happens to your customers then? As Xcel is, going to ask, I think, Mike, you said 9% or something?
Yeah, they're about 9.25 and
So
they
what
are.
happens to your subscriber?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's in our sort of subscriber agreement that we would do with a property owner. And as the Xcel rates, go up or down, we will always be it ranges between, I think, always follow whatever Xcel Energy charges.
And can you tell me what what's the new program called?
It's called the Non-Legacy Community Solar.
Non-legacy community solar? Okay.
Yeah, there was legislation passed last year and it just started on January and they started taking applications at the end of February. So this would be first projects in that new program.
You said it's controlled by the Department of
Commerce.
Commerce, yeah.
That
That's
doesn't give
correct.
me any sense of security.
Well, they've controlled it for decades.
Yeah, well, and they
That's
give
part of
Xcel, they give Xcel Energy everything and anything they want.
Yeah, that's not our mission here.
No,
tonight.
no.
I would like to mention too, SunShare has been around since 2011. They helped write the legislation in Colorado that created community solar. And when it was adopted in Minnesota back in 2013, we moved into this market and have been developing here since 2013. So we have quite a history. We have over 5,000 subscribers on our gardens. And we are an owner and operator of the project, so we don't sell, we manage them for the life of the system. That's always been sort of our business model and what we've built around as a company.
Another question is with these solar cells or solar systems getting more and more efficient, is there in part of the plan to replace some of the panels?
You know, it's certainly possible in 25, 30 years, if the landowner wants to do another lease, that you could keep, some of the racking and the existing equipment and swap out the panels. Of course, that's a conversation for down the road, but unless there's some type of damage where you need to swap something out.
Well, what I'm going at is the way the curve is going for the amount of power coming out of each cells, within 10 to 15 years, it'll almost double the power on the sheets that you're using right now if the technology keeps continuing, as I've been reading.
If, we see some significant increase and it's, beneficial to start from would be our intention. It would be to install sort of the equipment for the life of the system.
Any other questions? Thank you. Appreciate that. Is there any other petitioner that wants to speak? Otherwise, I'm going to open up a public hearing.
Make a motion to open the public
Do
hearing.
I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Hearing none, all in favor. Our public hearing is now open. Now, anybody wishing to speak for or against this petition, you have your time at the podium. And just state your name and address. Okay, anybody wish, well, you'll get your time. This public hearing now. Is there, and when I get to the third one, we'll look at that. Is there anybody else wishing to speak for or against this petition? Now we'll go to our screen and see if there's anyone wishing to speak online. Staff, can you help me with that at all? I don't know who RS is and I don't see a hand up.
Rachel.
The mic's off, so.
Rachel?
It looks like Rachel, but her mic is not on. And she could be listening, but not, she put a hand up or
We've
something.
had some difficulties in the last couple of meetings, so.
And I'm just trying to be all inclusive. So for the third time, is there anyone else wishing to speak for or against this petition? I'll give you your chance. Not your time, all right? Hearing none, now I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
I so move.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Hearing none, all in favor. Now I'll bring it back to our commissioners. What do you think? I think you brought up some good points here as far as what is state of the art and stuff. And I don't know myself personally, but go ahead, Jordan, and then I'll get to everybody else.
I have a couple concerns from a planning perspective here. The last application we looked at was not on prime soils, and that was one of the reasons I was in favor of it, because I would rather be using marginal farmland for solar projects than prime soil farmland. The other issue I have is that once again, according to Xcel Energy's hosting capacity map, it shows this area, which is one of the last rural areas in the county that has any hosting capacity. It says between 251 and 500 kilowatts. And this is a 0.5 megawatt project, which would essentially take up the rest of that hosting capacity. And if the intention of these gardens is to provide people a way to buy into solar if they can't put it on their own property, what's the point in developing all these solar gardens that eliminate the availability for people to put solar on their own property that will make them money?
Who was first though? I'll take Arlie then.
I agree with you. I'm one of them people that got screwed out of it. We were gonna put a small solar garden on our place and a little bigger to help pay for it. Sorry. That's why I wanted to buy $1 million transformer to enlarge our substation. They were all used up. So, I mean, if we wanted to do it just for ourselves, yes.
Yeah, and now My Energy has implemented their own rules that don't even allow people to produce more than what they use, which is not enough to cover the fees you pay to even have a meter.
Right.
Eugene.
I would like to have it read into the record about the soil types that are in our packet, but I don't know anybody actually having it in the record yet for this parcel.
Yeah, we could put that in. I'm just going to comment on that. No, we have an interim application, which means it ends at some point. We've talked about, like we did in the Stockton one, when they're done, they pull the I-beam out and that's back to farmland. So with this particular application, even whatever soil it is, does not mean it's gone forever. You're in a temporary usage. So I weigh that. And that's what Louis was getting at with the concrete and the so forth and so on.
Concrete makes it a permanent base.
And then we did hear testimony before of what it does cost to hook this up to whatever main line there is. Now, Excel Energy is the one down in that area. And as My Energy, was it you, Marcia, that said My Energy won't do it because of the cost? Or maybe it was you, Jordan, individually. And that,
They've changed their whole program where,
well, they had to because of the cost and trying to referee
Right.
the electricity going in and out for blackouts and a whole bunch of things. So in a perfect world, that sounds great. But is that realistic with our state on goal of trying to be carbon free by 2035? I mean, it's a Winona issue here at our planning commission, but it's also a bigger one where they're feeding in, and that's where his grants and different things come in that were passed last spring at the legislature. And as these new things come out, they never exactly fit the old ones. There's always some tweak to them. But that's just my take on the prime farmland. And we'd like to have it, but if I'm really into woods and side hill, I differ with you that that's wasteland. Ecologically, I want my woods, I want this, because that's a decarbonization, right?
Yeah.
So putting it there, you rob from one and give to another. So just my thoughts on it. But anyway, I'll open it back up to anyone else on the commission. Louis.
My concern is what's seen is, have we seen a cash flow from any of these projects to see if they're payable? You're running into you made the question that the county's stuck into that economically now. We should have some cash flows to see if it works or not. I mean, 3 possible scenarios, the best, the moderate, and the one that'll, O'Reilly comes around all the time. No tool.
Well, my thought on that too, we're in the land use, we're not into business plans.
Yeah, I don't think that matters.
So,
if
Well,
you're,
I think it does matter in the
Well,
point that if we sit here and if it's not economically viable,
but that's between the landowner and what is it? Sun
I
Energy?
know we sit there and we did it, but if we turn around and the county gets stuck
What's-
cleaning it up,
But we're trying to bond for decommissioning, we're trying to do
Okay.
different things. So, and I think it's out of order to go in and figure out their business plan. I don't think that's fair.
if they were coming to the EDA and asking for money, I think we
That's,
could.
then it's fair game.
But what Jordan brings up is a valid, and we were going to discuss this probably a couple of years ago, is the capacity. Do we allow, you know, the bigger operations to come in, take over the capacity, and then that denies the rest of our citizenry from taking advantage of that?
I think Arlie already told us that he's not going to be let in.
Yeah, well, but if we,
We petitioned him to let everybody in.
if we set the size to a lesser amount so that some people in the valley could, in the neighborhood, take advantage of that? I don't know. I mean, it
And
just
reading through the material
doesn't
and
seem fair.
to me, again, I'm just stating what I think is background. There's a critical size unit they need to make this profitable. And I think making it smaller really cuts into that critical size because it goes into hooking into the main line. You make it smaller, you still got to do those things. So I don't know, splitting it up and saying, we'll give you 2 acres instead of 3 is where we want to go.
Well, but then none of the neighbors can put one up. I guess it's the.
Part Is
block
Excel
gets-
or My Energy going to allow that anyway?
gets it. Yeah, I think it's still,
Not according to the policies we're hearing.
does this, Jordan, maybe you know more about it. Does, by putting a larger one and taking up the capacity, does an individual household still have the capability to put up just for their household?
Yes,
Yeah,
For their own personal use. yeah.
absolutely.
Personal.
Yeah, that's what I was
But
told
you
too.
lose, but you lose the benefit of a little larger to
Yeah.
help cover the costs and the,
Cell energy.
yeah, to,
That's an Excel.
for
That
the
was-
equipment and the extra metering and the,
Mhm.
well, yeah, and what happens is then, say you're only planning on staying at that house for another 10 years, if you're not overproducing enough to make up for those fees, then that system is not going to pay for itself or be feasible for that customer unless it's sized appropriately. And a company that's going to sell you solar for your house is going to oversize it by that amount so that you can actually pay it off or it will pay for itself in a reasonable amount of time.
yeah. I understand.
Now, I'm going to ask the petitioner to come up and I'm going to ask him a question. He mentioned several times subscribers. So multiple people would subscribe to this. And that is the local ones we're talking about. They're just integrating it into a system that's affordable. But you have to be a subscriber to get the cheaper benefit. Am I right? Come up and explain this a little
Well, if
bit.
You're not a subscriber.
If you're not, you're out. You just take care of yourself. That's your entitlement. You do
What
not have
happens
to.
in 2035 when we're supposed to be carbon free and you or me ain't a subscriber.
Well, that's your opportunity to get in 35 years, okay? That's our choice, okay? Tell us about the subscribers, because I think the commissioners here need to understand your business model better, all right?
Yeah, so our company does all the subscription work, so we'll go out and knock on doors and find folks that are interested in subscribing to the garden. And essentially, the way it works is they get, in essence, a portion of this garden art, kind of their panels. Instead of it being on the rooftops of their home, it's just happens to be on this land here. And through the grid, they receive that energy credit on their Xcel Energy bill. So in a month, if they use $100 of electricity, they would also be credited $100 of electricity of generation from this solar field. And so those two costs offset. And then to subscribe to this garden, they would subscribe with us and they would pay us, this monthly fee, which again would follow along with Xcel's rates and offer them a discount for the life that they subscribe. And they can join the garden and be a part of it. They can drop off at any time that they would like. It's just part of this new, program that I think does a really good job of really offering benefits for residential and LMI subscribers that were.
Marshall?
What do you do in December and January and February when these things don't produce enough to, you have to go out and buy it from Xcel, correct? Because you have to supply that power. So is there an escalator built into your contracts when we got cloudy months?
It's a great question. So there's sort of this banking system. I have solar on my home with XL Energy that does the same system, where generally from about March to October, you're going to produce more power than what you need. And you sort of kind of build this large credit with XL Energy that rolls from month to month. And then when you get into those winter months where we get, the snow and the cloudy days and less hours of daylight, you're sort of tapping into that credit that you've built up. And, what we would look to do is size this thing for your year-round usage, not just a particular part of the year, so that you can build up those credits that can be used in the winter months to offset the full cost.
So what will a homeowner, what's the subscription fee?
There's no fee.
But you gotta sign up for it.
There's no fee to get started or anything like that. It's the monthly payment based on your electric usage. Billed at a discounted rate from what I've said.
Here. I got a question. Say on a $200 a month home or whatever. How does that compare to like the subscription for the solar? Would it be around the same amount, more or less?
So you could sign up, and if you say my bill's $200, and you say, all right, you need 16 or 20 panels worth of electricity throughout the year, and we'd kind of size to your usage.
What would dollar wise be about?
As far as what the subscription would be,
Yeah, compared to like your normal, say a $200 a month electric bill.
it depends on the type of, household or other items, but if you're paying 200, maybe instead you only pay 180 or 170 or whatever it ends up being. But it's part of this new Department of Commerce program that there is reduction in price offered through these subscription offers.
Yeah, I was never given the choice up by us. On our solar, there's like 5 or 6 solar farms within a 5-mile radius, and I was never given a choice to buy in anything on that. But that's not to do with
Add
you.
it to the list.
Well, so going off your business model, obviously, under this new program, there must be some heavy government subsidies. Because you keep telling us it's going to be less to hook up to this new system. And new systems are very expensive. And you got infrastructure, you got people like yourselves running the business and everything. You keep telling us that they will pay less for their power. So are you, again, and I don't know this new whatever you called it, non-legacy community solar. What's the government incentive for you as a company to come in here and do this?
There's certainly, tax credits, like the federal tax credit, 30% has existed for a number of years that we
Built 30%?
Yeah, it was reduced and then it was brought back up. And through the IRA, Inflation Reduction Act, there are, certain tax credits, like one of them is domestic content. So if we use, I think it's over 60% of the garden is built with materials or that were made here in the United States, then
Yeah, that was another question. They're gonna have made in USA stamped on them?
Yeah, not everything will, but a large portion of it will be here made in the US.
I have a question, just thinking about your business. Have you previously purchased out other community solar operations, your business?
Like acquired another company?
Exactly.
I don't believe so, no.
Okay. Does your business plan work in the absence of, like, say, net metering is permitted in the state? It becomes a state law. All businesses, or rather all energy producers, have to provide for net metering. Does your business still operate?
Yeah, this is sort of a little different than net metering. This is a rate that's determined by the public. And between, companies like ours. Whereas net metering is this is kind of like in front of the meter. It's not particularly metered per se. Whereas like, on your home, that would be net meter. It's a little bit of a different, just kind of rate in the way that it was ironed out. So yes, we could exist without net metering, but certainly those kind of come as a deal as far as solar energy is concerned.
Thank you.
Yes.
Being a member of New Hartford Township, I see they had no comment. But is there any, and we just had our annual meeting and they're always concerned about tax capacity. And I don't know that we got any assessors in the audience either. So is something like this taxed as a commercial? So Mr. Brown or the Brown family will be paying commercial property taxes on this operation, which then the township may benefit from?
Yes. That is something that is in sort of our agreement with Mr. Brown, is that property taxes is paid directly by us. But yes, there is an increase.
Okay, does my planning staff agree that the land use switches to commercial?
Yeah,
I don't-
I don't know if they switch it to commercial, but there is reporting that the assessors do, that we do issue a megawatt solar.
Evaluate or
They
something?
do a revaluation with it, rate,
Okay,
classify it, I don't know.
okay,
And that is based,
that's okay.
not to interrupt Eric, but it's based on size too. But it's state, actually the state is the one
Benefits more.
running that.
Yeah,
Well, no, they kind of dictate to us
well,
how it's going to be.
yes, yeah, there are rules, but ideally a township should gain some value.
Well, we do in Hillsdale, and I forgot the percentage, I'd have to look it up, when they put the solar farm in down in Stockton Valley. That's a larger one, that's 13 acres, and it fell on a higher level. So the county actually gets a lot more than the township does, but that's true across the board.
Yeah. that's-
But again, it's, the state pretty much is in charge of what we're going to get. And like Eric said, it's a different classification, but there is a rate for that. So they aren't just freebies.
No,
All right.
I totally understand that. I know.
I do want to mention briefly too, Xcel Energy with their infrastructure and the substations, they do allocate and sort of keep 20% capacity for any, resident that wants to do solar on their own. So even though on the hosting capacity map, this may sort of indicate that we're using up all the capacity, there is still energy or capacity set aside for.
Any other commission, any other questions?
Another one, if I may. In terms of the entire parcel that we're seeing here, what percentage would you say the footprint of this project sits on?
So this is, I believe, about 3.5 acres of the 22 acre.
Oh,
parcel.
Yeah, it's definitely.
Has your company,
Jordan, did you have something? Okay.
has your company
Maybe.
decommissioned any projects up to this point?
We have, this program only started in 2013, so our earliest garden is only about a decade old.
Okay, but what is a decommission? Send the panels back to Japan or China or wherever they come from, or what, technically, what is a decommissioning plan?
It's
Because I don't think, I apologize, I think somewhere I read that there's really not a defined plan here until closer to the timing. Maybe Eric can, maybe I misread it.
They do have a breakdown of the costs and.
Page 167.
Oh, okay, because online, So, Lynn,
160, page
What?
167 and 168.
okay, because I
And it
didn't
looks
see
like
it in
they're
the
they're
online.
willing to estimate 65,000 for decommissioning. Based on their,
Well, we try and
Itemization.
think that these are green, but I know there's a lot of nasty stuff in them. So I don't know that anybody really knows what we're gonna do with these panels, just like turbine blades, what we're doing with them in the country.
Well,
Digging a big hole.
they can be recycled, and I think we could require them to be recycled because they're glass and carbon and aluminum and blue.
There's good stuff in them
Um,
too, yeah.
Yeah, it just costs money to take that all apart.
Mention, recycling as much of the equipment as possible upon decommissioning.
yep, that's the last one on debris, separated into recyclables, residual waste.
That covered quite a few things. Gene, you had a question.
I realize that, I'm probably over the hill, but from my experience in agriculture, this 20-acre field, even though we're only gonna use 3.5 acres of it for this solar garden, basically, we have made the rest of the 20 acres
Unusable.
unusable. And I don't see that that's coinciding with the understanding that we have in our conditional use plan to take and preserve agricultural land. Now, you may be right that 35 years from now, they might be able to plant corn in this whole field again. But what happens if 15 years from now, they need the corn already to feed people? And the other thing is, I totally disagree with the chairman's rhetoric about net zero by 35, because I believe it's 50, and I don't think we're ever going to get there.
I'm only quoting what the state of Minnesota and
But
what Governor Walz wants.
that's what you said is
Well, that's
for
the
the
goal.
record.
That's part of the goal.
Well, we'll never get there if we don't have the solar and wind projects.
So your power companies are mandated to make changes. And they're, if they can't make them here, they have to make them somewhere. So you can kick the can down the road somewhere else. And as far as the 4 acres or 3.5, I guess it's up to Mr. Brown what he wants to do with the other 15 acres. If he wants to raise a produce garden, I don't care. But again, we're here, and that's why they're asking for a conditional use. These things have to be factored in.
What is the plan for the rest of the acres?
Crops.
In any of your other sites, do you see a lot of unused agriculture space still used for farming? Is that something you've seen in your experience?
Certainly, in some of our sites, we actually include agriculture as part of our plan and project. It's sort of this growing part of solar called agrivoltaics.
Explain that.
Where, well, we have several sites where we have pollinator-friendly habitat and have beekeeping on site that produces honey. We have some where we've used apple trees as screening, and one where we actually produce fruits and vegetables on site that we donate to a food shelf. So certainly you can grow crops around these projects, and it's outside of the fence line. I mean, it's totally up to Mr. Brown as to what you would like to do with that land. The project just encompasses the lease.
In fact, Marcia, you'd be pleased with this over by Lincolnsboro. The My Energy solar farm on 250, is it?
Yeah.
They graze sheep in there. Right in it. So they do dual up on
I've heard that
things.
growing marijuana takes a lot of electricity, so maybe we'll get a marijuana. growing
Well, maybe you could put a
operation.
business plan together.
I am together.
Get a CUP.
That's how they're catching them in illegal.
Okay, any other questions
Oh, really?
from the petitioner? Otherwise, I'll let you sit down and we'll decide where we go with this.
Right.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion. Wait, do we need to open the meeting to the public?
No, we're done.
Oh, we're done with
Closed
that.
it.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for you.
Put back to
Did we
the,
close
yeah,
the public?
Yes, we did.
okay.
And I'm asking what you guys want to do.
Motion to approve the project.
Findings of fact as well. You're gonna do it all inclusive?
13
Second.
recommendations.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any discussion before we vote?
Just more of a comment, and since unfortunately the Browns aren't here to like answer the question, what are they gonna do with the rest of the field? One of the big things in those whole valleys is we're getting a lot of invasive, if you just leave it lay, we're getting a lot of invasive species. And of course, we've got, weed control as part of, the county's responsibility and such, but, and I will try and get a hold of the Browns to see what their intent is with the rest of that, acreage.
I do got a question. They put a solar farm up last year. or the year before, I don't remember. Anyway, all the pine trees are turning brown. What's the requirement on that?
Well,
Report?
that would be back to our
The
planning
landscape-
commission to review.
The landscape that we're trying to put in now?
Right, all the way around. A fair amount of them are all dying off.
And I'm not surprised. We had a severe drought.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, you know,
So
But-
does the
but they-
person just get a hold of the planning when he's on board?
right.
You know, and they may come around, who knows, but I got a feeling that.
But if they don't, we have the ability to contact them and say, hey, we want to replace. Because that's part of the additional use.
Look at you, Eric.
And just another comment too, I'm gonna ask legal to look into, you know, who we're holding accountable. Again, I don't know that the petitioner should be Dakota Sun, and especially they're listed first. That really gets me angst. I really feel strongly that we have to hold our landowners accountable, because it's too easy to say, well, I didn't know, you know. If a landowner got a document like this to sign and look over, are they gonna know all the nitty gritty details? And they're
Take it.
and they're assuming that the company is a rep, and I don't know your company or anything, that is a reputable, and they're gonna be here, and they're gonna be dealing with that same company and those same individuals for the next 35 years.
But the petition lists both of them. The landowner is responsible.
Right.
And would you rather just have the landowner? Or
Yes,
why wouldn't you want whoever's doing it have some responsibility
because the
too?
landowner then would have to deal with just like if I go out and do business with, you know, some company, you know.
I think having, this is my personal opinion, I think having them both gives our planning department better leverage to make sure this project is
We've
worked
got an
right.
issue going on right now that I don't,
Well, I understand that,
No.
but I'm looking at this one.
you know, and
I just wanted to reiterate that the landowner is ultimately responsible, and what, what typically would be in the agreement between the landholder and the person, property, the business leasing the property, is that they agree to indemnify the landholder if there is financial things that need to be dealt with. So if you come to the landowner and say, there's this problem and it's gonna cost you this much money to fix, it's gonna be the company that will end up paying that, which through the agreement that he has with the landowner. So having the company on there does not relieve the landowner of responsibility. And I don't know the agreement between the landowner and the company, but typically the company has the deep pockets to deal with whatever needs to be fixed related to their project.
again, I'll go back to the solar, I'm sorry, the wind project back in, I think, 2008. The county spent an enormous amount of time fighting legally over that whole project and trying to get things handled. Such an enormous amount of time. And that was because it was the wind developer that got dealt with versus the landowner, and I'm going from history. So I don't want to have to spend county dollars chasing these mega corporations who also have deep pockets to fight things. Yeah, they got deep pockets to fix things, but they got deep pockets to fight things. And so I'm trying to avoid, that from a legal perspective.
Wasn't the county the petitioner in that case?
That was a very convoluted scenario.
Well, you were involved.
I was.
I mean, the county was involved.
And it was through.
That wasn't,
Through the landowners, and it was through several different wind
and I understand
developers. Yeah, it was a horror story.
because it was so complex that nobody could figure it out. And then they ended up going down.
They didn't want to explain it.
But let's go back to our petitioners. In fairness, we're looking at their petition, not our horror stories that we got involved in a wind
We'll
generator.
learn from our mistakes.
And that's good.
Same.
Any other comments? We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Otherwise, I'm having a vote. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay.
Nay.
Now, since that was hard to figure out, I want those who said aye to raise their hand. And this will help our staff. Okay? We got John, we got Mike, we got Arlie, we got Jeff, and we got Louis. Okay? Those that say nay, raise your hand. and we've got three. Marcia, where are you?
I'm not gonna vote tonight.
But I'm gonna, so you're gonna abstain? Okay, but we got Nate, we got Jean, Jordan, and Lynn. And then if I hear you correctly, Marcia Ward is abstaining. Okay? So being that 5 is the majority, it goes on to the county board now. And the time it will be heard will be May 9th at 9 a.m. in the county board room, which is this room, right? Okay?
I have a question. So if we wanted to change the permitting process or anything, the zoning ordinance pertaining to solar farms in the county, would that be made upon motion in a planning commission meeting?
Well, you
or-
could make a motion, but we'd have to have public hearings and hear it out and then make a motion, make a recommendation, send it to the county board.
Okay.
Gene?
This was discussed, Jordan, 4 years ago. That was really needed desperately. And this is how far we've gotten in 4 years. A big goose egg. And that might be the same goose that you saw flying over your vehicle.
I know Chief Small, it's the same.
Yeah, but we never get anywhere.
I myself, I think we could have a private meeting just for that. Between the planning commission.
Oh, we
Where
could
we
have,
need to go.
well, if the planning commission wants to meet and talk about it, we have to put it on our agenda. And have a work session about it. We could do that.
We should.
Does that need a motion?
Yeah.
I'm not going to entertain a motion until I hear the next petition.
Sounds good.
Would you
At the
entertain a
end.
motion for a 5-minute recess?
Yes, we can do that. And then we're going to hear our next petition. So let's take a 5 minute or 10, whatever you guys need.
Yeah, we had a few right at the end. We'll overtake them. That's really good. Change the-
We should bring that up.
Yeah.
I,
Before we adjourn.
Make a motion.
Well, it should be for the next.
Just for the new-
yeah.
We had discussed.
Talk to him and he'll probably even give you a written copy.
Yeah, near where the current solar plants are.
Jamie, you don't know.
I don't know what capsules they got for the heat. Run the cycle. All you gotta do is put it in there. Furnace, you run it with the solar plant. So your turbine and stuff there, all the infrastructure, all the wires and everything else is there. You don't have to go out in fields.
I'm just curious. What do you
Put up new lines or anything. New
A few
concrete.
things I do.
Well, you
township road maintenance,
When you gotta take it out,
private projects,
you know what I'm talking about.
ag projects, conservation work.
They
Heavy
put,
machinery.
Yeah.
breaker run down and then,
Plowing,
3/4 road
um,
rock.
And then I subcontract, for a solar company in town doing, ground screws.
Oh,
I do a little bit of that.
yeah, cool.
Yeah.
So you're self-employed?
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, no problem.
Is your dad still involved in it at all?
Yeah, he's,
Overseer.
picking and choosing, so if he has an opportunity to jump an excavator for the day, he's happy to do that, but he doesn't want to be moving equipment or plowing snow or anything like that.
I've seen him for quite a while.
Well, if you go to the right place to eat dinner on Friday, you might run into him or lunch or whatever.
Where's it? This one.
Oh, they usually every Friday they go out somewhere for lunch.
No. Yeah, it's just.
Where the hell?
Yeah, fish or something. But he's got enough projects at home that he doesn't really.
People say, why aren't you gonna retire?
He's
Sit around.
he said he was, but he hasn't retired at all. He's got a hot rod he's working on.
Does he?
Yeah, well, we
build it.
it was my great grandpa's old farm truck. It's a 46 International.
Ooh, I'm a classic.
It's got a big block in it and a 4-link rear end. And
It ain't a farm truck.
no, it's not a farm truck anymore. We started on it 20 years ago and it didn't make
Is
much
there any left?
progress.
If there is,
until
that's fine.
I retired.
Small bit I should have been.
Well, we'll explain.
Those things take a while.
Yeah.
But it's okay. We're not gonna worry about it. Thank you.
Get a little
The
more.
Brown property is about the only
Whatever.
south facing land in the whole valley. You know, it makes a curve there and then,
Then it goes,
yeah.
yeah.
She thinks he's doing his culverts up on her run. It's
Yeah.
like he bought a brand new, oh, well, drove it back,
Trying to
oh,
tell it.
got another one that was very old, sit by my place.
Good.
Oh, really?
We gotta get
Yeah, they
like-
usually got pretty
See
good
that-
stuff.
Those two that were you
His
on that
dad
board,
started
the
that,
two
didn't
up
he?
by Ridgeway?
Yeah.
Okay.
My dad worked for
And
him
then
long
Briar,
when he was a
They were the
teenager or
ones who
something.
were putting one on the south side of I-9.
Wasn't there a couple of
And
brothers,
they said, "How much
Travis and
project
another
going?"
one?
This was about a year. and a
Yeah,
half.
I don't know them very well. I met Dwayne a long time ago, but
It was over $1 million. I don't know where the substation is, where they
Oh,
have
years
this thing
ago,
into.
all blacked
I
out, they
can't
got
picture one, way up the hill by Ridgeway maybe, but
Travis.
I just don't
Seemed like there
picture
was
any,
another
where,
one
where you
too.
hook the power.
yeah, there
Yeah.
is. I can't remember his name.
Where you
clue.
put the plug in.
I don't know if he's still in the business.
So I just, but he said they have one and see, that's one
Had
of
a
the
little
things, with
problem
the
when they
earlier
were
ones, they never
Sioux
had that
Street,
agreement
wasn't
until they us
They got
the work on, you know, what, to me, that should be the first thing that's there.
College,
Well, we have all our
right.
staff work.
When the big sign blew over,
Yes.
dented her hood,
And
busted
again,
the headlights and all that stuff.
Knowing-
Right.
I talked to somebody
So.
city and they said, let's just get hold of Lincoln.
Wait, I don't got it.
Okay. I called down there. And she, yeah, well, you want to talk to the owner.
Wasn't on any of
Give
the
me Travis.
documents.
You probably don't remember me, Trey.
It should be the.
That's
to
about
me,
30,
it's the-
40 years.
Do you remember you?
Oh, yeah.
the lane.
Had to, remember when?
Oh, and we didn't even discuss this should have
Could've
been
got in trouble.
a interim use. Have the other ones always been conditional? All the other?
Yeah, I haven't seen many IUPs.
Have all the
Been a
others
lot of
always been
discussion between the
conditional use versus
Mhm.
interim?
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe it's more of a close end point.
No, but they're saying 35 years. That's a definitive.
Well, 25 to 35. The solar one in Stockton was 23.
That's-
Interim use transfer with property as well?
No, I don't believe it does.
Well,
Conditional does.
The one,
Conditional does, the
conditional
non-conditional.
stays with the property.
Yeah, that's,
But
Big
this, if we went
distinction.
interim, would it stay with the property? There's another legal question.
No.
no, I
We
think it
don't need
stays.
to answer that tonight, but
Well,
do you have
yeah.
do you have a quick answer?
Okay, one more and then we gotta get our next petition.
Would require them to reappear because of a change of ownership.
Yeah, but I mean, it's
Yeah, but-
rare that we would make them.
Yeah, the solar have been historically all conditional use permits because when they get into that level of financing, you know, the sureties that are posted, most of the underwriting is not gonna touch anything that has interim use.
But if it's a
designation.
conditional use permit and this thing wears out in 35 years, are they automatically allowed to put a replacement in, are they? On the same size?
Let's say a tornado took it out
Yeah,
and they are to replace it, I think we'd have to be obligated by the conditional use permit.
but they, so, okay, so it would always have one of the same size without coming back into the skin.
Any increase or change in
They
capacity.
wouldn't have to ask permission.
But if they change certain dynamics of that are outside the framework of the condition that represented, that's something that we'd have to probably have a reapplication.
So, okay.
Okay, thank you, Eric. Okay, we're gonna move on to PC 04-1824-02. And this is Jay and Laura Grund and Carl and Judith Renderly, property owners. And the request is petitioner seek a conditional use permit to allow a single family dwelling on slopes greater than 12% to be located within the Mississippi River Bluffs and the urban residential zoning district pursuant to chapter 11.6.4 of the Winona County ordinance. Petitioners are also required to obtain a variance from the Board of Adjustments for development on steep slopes between the toe and the top of the bluff. So Olivia, I think you have this, right? Yeah, I think it's working. Yeah.
So I do. One note on that, the variance was granted earlier today for development on steeper slopes and within the toe of the top of the bluff. And as Chairman Flynn mentioned, this is a conditional use permit and it's required because it is in the Mississippi River Bluff overlay, which requires a conditional use permit for new dwellings over 12%. So a little bit of an overview. It's Richmond Township. It's actually section 17. It's located along Mary's Hillview Drive. And one thing to note is that it is within a platted subdivision. So the parcel is towards the end of that cul-de-sac off of Mary's Hillview Drive to the west. It's just an overview of the subdivision. You can see there again, it is lot 4, the polygon closest to the cul-de-sac there to the south. So this is the applicant created site plan. Originally it was an 100 by 100 building envelope that they were proposing their home to fit inside. You'll note there were some changes to what staff are proposing after our site visit. But this was the mapping exhibit that was prepared on the right-hand side, again, showing that 100 by 100 building footprint. And then there on the left, some of the natural features that we're dealing with for the site. So there's shoreland on the other side of the parcel, away from where the building would be. We have the bluff overlay. It's also a high archaeology probability, so there would be a phase 1 survey required, as well as that road setback there. And it is split zoned, so this yellow shown in the petitioner's map is urban residential, and then there is that corner to the southeast that's actually ag resource conservation. It should be noted too that this petition has 2 petitioners. The Gruns are proposing to purchase the property, and the property owners are currently the Rinderleys, which is noted on the first page of the staff report. So this would be a change to the site plan that I showed you on the previous slide. This is what staff are recommending as the proposed development area to encompass the building site, so any structures. This is based off the soils on site as well as 2 active gullies that kind of border the yellow hatched area. You'll see them in some photos, but you can see the contour lines that kind of border to the north and south and envelope. So there is a proposed 30-foot setback from the top of both of those 2 active gullies. This site plan was also used at the Board of Adjustment earlier today, and that variance was granted with this change to the site plan. So some of the considerations, like I said, the variance was granted. The parcel itself is about 2.5 acres, split zoned, as I mentioned before. They are proposing to have their new residence on the flattest area of the property, right off of the road. There are 2 active gullies, which I'll show in some photos in a couple of slides. We do have some concerns for erosion and stormwater runoff impacts on the site. So it is noted that those will need to be addressed in a stormwater and erosion control plan should the conditional use permit be granted. So these are some overview photos from when we were out on site. Me and another planner from our office, as well as a representative from Soil and Water, were out there together to look at where their building site was proposed. So this is access looking to the south. The driveway is staked there. The stakes are circled in red on the photo on the right. And then this is looking towards the north, down Mary's Hillview Drive. And you'll note too, the photos that I'm showing you do use that 100 by 100 building footprint. It's originally proposed just because that's what the petitioners had staked out on site. So this shows looking towards the flatter area of the property, looking southwest. And then this is one of the steeper sides, looking southeast there with one of the corner stakes looking up towards that flatter area. This is looking northwest towards the gully. You can see there it's kind of right on the edge of that gully going down on the site. And this again is looking northwest towards the building site. It does have the southeast corner staked, and it shows the flatter area of the property with the gully kind of going off to the left there in that photo. And I should note too, the aerial maps on the left that are included with all these photos, the yellow lines are 10-foot contours, and then if you can see the red, those are 2-foot.
Where are the neighbor properties that had concerns about runoff in relation to these pictures?
The comment that we received?
Yeah, I think there was two, or was there one or two? Where are they located?
Yep, let me, so I'll point to it here.
I didn't. Drive down.
The photos that you saw were, there's like the rocks that were added.
Mhm.
Right in this area here.
Oh, that's considerably.
These are all obviously residences
Yeah,
here.
yeah.
And then,
I can picture it. I didn't go there today or.
Yep.
Stuff it is. Okay.
Olivia,
yes,
the one where it's near a gully,
okay.
that one.
Yep.
Okay, is that the property line or where the, or
That's,
footprint?
yep, that's the footprint. So if you look on the left, there's the blue square
Okay,
with that yellow like angle.
okay.
That's where I was standing. So the yellow angle is looking at that corner stake of that building site. So the red outlines of that polygon are the approximate parcel lines. So the property line does go down into that gully.
Thank you.
We have 2 photos in our packet that I wasn't sure exactly what they're about, but I guess it's the gullies, maybe?
Nope. So those photos are the neighbor that Marcia mentioned that I showed down the road a bit. Yep. Different property, but they did have runoff concerns just with the landscape as it exists today.
Thank you.
So a little bit more information on the gullies themselves. We took a couple of photos while we were out there. The southern side and then the northern side, you can see with the contours, I'll go and point, but you can see they, like I said, they kind of envelope that property there. If you look how the contours kind of, one here on the south bends around this way, and then this one kind of bends around that way. So this is the flatter area where they're proposing the dwelling, and then both of those are sitting kind of like that there. So because it is a conditional use permit in the Mississippi River overlay, view shed analysis is used as a tool. We really don't have too strict of standards as to what that looks like. But we did provide a couple of exhibits for you to take a look at. So this is just based off of elevation. I used an aerial image and just overlaid elevation coloring. So the lighter it gets, the taller it is. You can see there's the lower area that incorporates Green Terrace, and then property to the west, it's kind of a lower wetland area. And then you can see that black star there is where the building site would be. So it is raised higher than a lot of the properties on Mary's Hillview Drive below it. But you can see that because it's kind of situated in between 2 bluffs, you really need to be in the funnel in order to see it. And looking at the next slide, with leaf on condition, staff really didn't have too many concerns for this type of residence in this area. It is a residential subdivision already. They do have height and design requirements as a part of the Mississippi River Bluff standards that we have in code. When we were on site with leaf off conditions, we could see across the river to Trempealeau and a little bit of the water on the far side. So we would assume that, you know, looking from that side on the water, you could potentially see this development if it were approved. But it wouldn't be something that seems out of the ordinary for this type of area. So Richmond Township, they did go to the meeting. Richmond Township did sign the form indicating support regarding the request. So our recommendation would be that you consider all materials and testimony before making findings that support your decision. Our draft findings do support granting the conditional use permit. And should you decide to approve the petition, we've drafted 7 conditions for your consideration. The petitioners are here tonight, and if you have any questions for me now, I can certainly try my best to answer them.
Any questions? Olivia.
Yes.
I think I heard you correctly, but you said the modified footprint for the actual structure, it's already mentioned in the conditions from the staff, or was it just part of the Board of Adjustments that it got recorded?
So the development footprint that changed from that 100 by 100 foot was approved with the Board of Adjustment earlier today. Let me get to that page in this packet.
Well, I'm just wondering if we have to modify this one. Reflect that.
So that would be condition 5 that we recommended. It states all development shall be located a minimum of 30 feet away from the top of the 2 gullies surrounding the building site within the development area as depicted in figure 2.
Okay,
So
great.
figure 2 is the exhibit that's up on the
Okay,
screen right now.
great. Thank you.
Chair,
Yes.
do they have a plan where the septic system would go?
They have not had a contractor on site yet.
But it's the end of the building end.
Accommodate the septic.
Not necessarily.
Page,
They'll need to have someone come on site to identify soils.
Steeper slopes then?
If they can meet state code, we would, but there are definitely challenges with the site for septic. So they'll need to have a designer out on site to see where they can put that. But septic does take priority on site.
page 256 is where they tentatively got. a
Yeah, I
couple of-
remember.
253
I will say that that tentative site plan was submitted by, I believe, their building contractor, who isn't necessarily a state certified septic designer. So it's really a preliminary at this point. It takes soils work to determine where that system can actually be sited. But best case, they would want it in that area.
256 then, is that up the little green S block? Is that up higher on the hill?
That's going downhill.
Downhill, okay.
Mhm.
They got an alternate site.
If you actually got 2 spots per pot.
Wouldn't look to hold much weight being that a
No dual tank system.
Yeah,
septic, an
they're
active
gonna have
septic
to
system
do a
hasn't been
total
out there yet.
analysis.
You know,
That could go anywhere.
yeah.
They'll have to be away from the well, but it's limited. Yeah.
That's right.
Any other questions for Olivia? Otherwise, let's have the petitioners come up. Give us any more
Thank you.
information they can. Come on up. Just state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, Jay Grund, 409 Skyline Drive, Trophy Club, Texas. Yeah, I mean, Olivia explained it pretty well. We have a contract to purchase the land, and this is just part of the due diligence period for me, just to determine if we can build a suitable house. As for, the discussions about the septic and designs, we obviously haven't commissioned any of that yet because we don't own it, right? So this is the first step there. So in the event that we did move forward, those would be the next things that we would work on. But as Ms. Luther mentioned, our intentions are to build a single-family residence that is in line with the rest of the houses in that area, and to kind of be in harmony with the land and the neighborhood and preserve as much of the landscape as possible. That's all I have. If anybody has any questions for me.
I have a question. Will this be your primary residence?
Yeah, that's a good question. Really good question. That yet to be determined.
It would be if you.
It would be a residence. It would not be rented to anybody. It would be my residence. I'm not sure I would live there 6.5 months out of the year yet.
You're leaving Texas.
I left Texas in 1989. I want to get back here as quick as I can. So this is the first step. But I did live here before, so I've lived through the winter, so I can't promise you I'll be here primary. Believe me, it's not getting warmer than Texas.
All right, thank you.
Yep, thanks.
Motion to open the public hearing.
A second.
All in favor, say aye.
Yep.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. All in favor.
Aye.
Public hearing is open. Anybody wishing to speak for or against this petition, come on up to the podium.
Chris Myers up there.
Anybody wishing to speak for or against this petition, please come to the podium. No, for the third time. Anybody wishing to speak for or against this petition, please step forward to the podium.
Make a
I
motion to
move that the
close.
public hearing closes.
Second that.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, the same. Hearing none, all in favor. Okay, commission. Anything you need to know? Yes.
Was there any particular issue at the Board of Adjustment?
No, well, we discussed a little bit about, the neighbors' concerns. And, we really didn't see an opportunity for water to leave that site and continue down the road. Cause it would have to make it past that big gully on the north side. And we also discussed the septic as well, and, with it needing to meet, state standards, we felt that that would satisfy us. And the same thing with the erosion control plan, seemed to satisfy us as well.
And I have a question for staff.
Yes, go ahead.
Past experience with view shed analysis. Your verbiage here, so are you going to require them to go through the whole view shed analysis, or your determination here is that it's not necessary? Yeah, be careful on this one, because the last view shed analysis is still
Different. Yep.
still an issue with me personally.
Okay. So I think our code language says something along the lines of a view shed analysis must be employed as a tool for decision making. And so this was, not every view shed analysis has to be the same. So this is what staff felt was adequate for this petition, given the circumstances. If you feel that more information is needed or there's questions that are left unanswered, then we can certainly provide more if you would like.
Mr. Overhog did the last one. Did he visit this site? Because I'm looking for the same lens.
He was on site with me. Yep.
And he was comfortable with this. The verbiage saying that it's kind of, maybe you could see it, maybe you couldn't, and,
So he reviewed the staff report. Yes.
all right, okay, well, it's the last, and it wasn't staff, it was my county board that, yeah, how we interpreted that view shed analysis on that Homer property.
St. Mary's, that we got a commission, that's.
Yeah, yeah. And again, to the petitioners, I'm not, it's an internal thing. It's nothing with your site or anything. I think you need to build a house there and we will tax you appropriately. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I would move to recommend this for approval as written with the conditions.
Second it.
And findings of fact, too.
Correct, yeah.
We have a second. All in favor? Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Anybody abstaining? Okay, then we're all in favor. Are you?
Archaeological assessment, that will be required. They will have to go through that.
Yep.
Have we had any done in that? I don't remember any new properties being developed in that neighborhood. So this is something
Not
unique.
in that immediate area.
Yeah, so we don't have any history of the chances of them finding anything. Okay. All right.
Have we ever found anything?
I don't know. No chicken bones out of it.
Well, it's kind of required in some areas. Okay, before we adjourn, I've talked to a few of you, but we've had a lot of discussion.
You're gonna tell them that it's May.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, it's passed.
Yeah.
Your next hearing is May 14th at 9 a.m. County Board. And right here in this room. So I don't know if it's in the representation. Talk to the staff to figure out what you want to do there. But May 14th is when the final authorization comes. Is that true of the variance or is that done? That should be
That's
done.
done, yeah.
So your last hurdle is May 14th. Thank you on that. Now, we've had a lot of discussion. Not just this solar petition, but multiple ones. And a lot of things come up. So it's been suggested that this commission have a work session, maybe at our next meeting, reserve some time at the end to discuss our concerns about what the ordinance should, thank you folks, should read and where we are on it. Because right now the direction seems a little quasimodo here. And there's more coming. I mean, this is the way it is. So it's a matter of when and where that capacity is that you bring up. Because if we have no capacity to add them, then it's not going to happen. Life has changed in that industry where unfortunately they're just not going to be as friendly like 10 years ago where you could put it on a meter and sell it back. Okay. And as you heard tonight, there's a lot of changing on tax credits, tax incentives, more than I even know about. Because we have Minnesota, we have federal and a whole bunch of things. And we probably, I'm hoping for the staff to support some information here so that we can conduct a meeting that stays on track of the petition. Okay? Because we can't solve how My Energy operates. We can't solve how Excel Energy operates. And we can't change the laws that get passed at our state legislature or federal ones. We might elect officials we think we can control, but it seems to be handed down. But I think solar, when I was on the comprehensive plan about 10 years ago, it's hardly even discussed, right, Marcia?
Wasn't on our radar, no.
And then we added that later, but it's really changed.
Yeah.
There we were dealing with windmills and they were built with tax credits and everything you can imagine, on there. But it's a moving target. And it'd be nice if we kind of had more information on how to deal with these issues. How big a one is this? They asked about taxation, varies by size. I don't know what it is, and maybe that's something we could find out. And that affects our townships, our county, and so on. Longevity, we hear, okay, this one is projected to wear out in 21 years. But we had a 23-year lease for reclamation cleanup, right? The day it shuts down is not the day they're going to be packing up, on the deal. And what kind of bond do they need? What's reasonable? Those types of things I think we need to discuss. And I don't have answers to any of them.
My personal thought, is okay, we've got just a bond. I mean, whether it's 2 acres or 20 acres. That's the way it's set up.
Yeah, but it varies depending on the size of the project. It varies on our staff. And we've talked about this bond even for other projects,
Right.
like the sand mine, all right?
Yeah.
We jumped all over with that one. And I think we need just a little research to bring in what's reasonable under today's standards, okay? And I think we need to be consistent. We can't do this for this one and then 5 months later, all of a sudden, well, no, we're not going to do that. Because consistency should be there. Shouldn't be all over.
10 or 20 years from now, okay, we have a bond for this now. 20 years from now, that bond.
I'm not arguing that. I'm arguing somebody that petitions 5 months ago to petitions now, and we're all over the place. We shouldn't be that way, okay?
Could bite us in the ass.
But we can fight that bond yet forever, and I don't have answer for that either. Let's let our legal people help us out on that. Well, yeah, and that's my whole
But I
point.
know, and I know we're the land use, but I have some concern about the landowners that are signing some of these agreements and maybe not being consistent in knowing what they signed. Like I'll tell you, like the buyers thought they were gonna have a golden egg. They were gonna make all kinds of money. And then Excel told them, no, you gotta spend $1 million to put the line in under I-90. I mean, again,
Well, they should have done due diligence, but we're not here to write business plans.
but part of our is to have a signed connection agreement. And maybe that should be a step that's outlined
And I
somehow.
I think that's worth talking about.
Where do we take
But
our petition?
we talked earlier about, this is right where My Energy and Excel
Yeah.
separate for the line, yes. And I don't think we're going to solve that tonight. These are just things we should put on the table so that our thoughts at least are organized. I'm not telling you how to vote, but a little more information would be helpful, right?
I agree. Is there a situation where solar comes to us where it is just building and land use permit? Or is it always conditional use?
In our case, it's conditional use.
So it's kind of difficult then, because the condition's going to be different for every site. So
And that's right.
approach it uniformly, I think is great, because I don't want to get caught seeming favorable to one and
Well, then you're
less
going to,
so just by the look of their, or what they would say, the look of my face just doesn't warrant a good.
and in
favorable
fairness,
statement.
we're trying to keep the county out of a lawsuit.
Absolutely. I understand.
Because if we're not consistent, fair enough, right?
Absolutely.
And if we do deny it, well, why do we deny it now? In our case, we recommend, and then it goes to the county board. So they got the final say. So we recommend only.
That's
So, and if something comes up on May 15th, it might not go through. And that happens quite a bit, doesn't it? Eugene, you had a comment.
So far, I don't recognize that we talked about the permit that Andy Cronenbusch got passed by this zoning commission. And that one didn't have the agreement with Excel.
No.
And so it never got built. And we spent enormous amounts of time with a lot of people involved. And we just wasted our time.
And Mr. Cronenbusch can't be more frustrated.
Well, yeah, that was his
But-
livelihood.
But we can't promise all that. And I know what you mean. It's frustrating. We passed it. But they're stuck. Are you going to let us do this? Just like you heard in the last petitioner. If I know I got a chance of getting this, I'll bring in the septic people. I'll bring in the well drillers. But I'm not going to invest thousands of dollars
I think that
and you're not going to approve
is
it.
totally dead.
I mean, that's fair enough to go through a chain of command.
I don't think it is. I think there's something maybe.
Do we know how the petitioners found that site? Did they just do their own site analysis, throw a couple overlays on a GIS map and go, that looks good? Like, is there?
Probably through a realtor.
Okay.
They hit on the internet.
Mr. Chairman?
Stuff there.
I believe that most of these developers do get a GI, whatever we call this map thing. And
GPS.
then they approach the landowner to see if they are willing to take it the next step. That's what happened with me.
I'm willing
This
to
is a
bet,
parcel lot.
I'm willing to bet that the area where Excel had capacity had a lot to do with the area where they found a spot to put that. I don't think they were looking anywhere else.
They gotta be close.
I don't either. I agree with Jordan.
Could you expand on what's this capacity element?
So the equipment on the grid is only capable of handling a certain amount of generated electricity going back out to customers. And so generally outside of city limits, those are all at capacity at this point, other than this specific part of the county right now.
And it just has to do with transmission?
Yeah,
Okay.
so there could be more capacity created, but then that's going to be a cost to Excel to upgrade equipment.
Over time, they're gonna have to increase because population's increasing.
Yeah,
Kind of a
and
weird
we have
dance.
electric car mandates and
Well,
their usage will be going up for sure.
Globally, energy is, the demand for energy is gonna increase.
Yeah.
So it's a weird dance Excel plays with saying not yet.
Oh, they're petitioning for a huge transmission line from western Minnesota to Minneapolis. And the last one they did took them 21 years to accomplish. So that's what it is. Gene, go ahead.
Well, one thing we gotta understand with XL, they only have the one line from La Crescent to Winona to the next town along the Mississippi. That's why these areas are affected by XL, because the rest of us are all under My Energy. Right?
Well, they got that one big power line that comes out of Elmo,
Yeah, they
comes down
do.
the river.
So when you go north of Rolling Stone, north of there is all Excel.
Right.
The solar farm on the Spells Farm, that's Excel.
Yeah.
And so's the one on, going up to 50 there, going to Rolling Stone.
So we don't need a,
Denser.
Didn't spell.
we need a motion to have a working session on this.
Yeah, I'd like one.
I would like to make that motion.
All right. Any other discussion? Oh,
Is it worth our time at all went to
Yeah, it would be.
staff
yeah.
to prepare something that states like, these sites are great areas to put solar. So when we decline them for, hey, I don't want to give you prime agriculture, why don't you take this over here? Here's a consolation.
I know what you're feeling, that'd be ideal world. However, it doesn't work that way.
Right.
You don't know where the good sites are as it comes down to the transmission and where it's needed. And what would it cost to put that in? Like the one in Stockton is already a transmission line, but My Energy going right.
Most do, it's close to a line.
Maybe close to the
Transmission.
substation.
We could adjust our zoning to rule out things like prime soils.
You know.
We
Okay.
already did in the WCZO.
Well,
It's already in our zone.
The last time that this discussion, I think we did write performance standards for prohibiting it on prime soils, if you recall, amongst a number of other standards. And we had consensus at the planning commission, but it was completely defeated at the county board level. So it's something that we have looked at, and part of that argument,
Look at it again.
part of that argument was that it's a 30-year time frame, and their argument is that at some point it may revert back to agricultural land. The counter argument has always been that they are potentially protecting it for viable agricultural practices. I just discussed this with the neighboring or Rice County. They're having the same issues. And I told them our experience is that we did have a work session. We talked about trying to put these more strategically on not viable tillable acreage, but that discussion has kind of gone around in a circle.
and when we went to the more difficult topography, like the Denzer one up in Rolling Stone, they couldn't do it because they couldn't service it. We have erosion problems. I mean, the ones down by Dresbach and Apple Blossom, I remember erosion being a problem for many years. So we just can't plunk them in some bluff somewhere and make them work. So there's a lot of strategic things, and we don't need answers today. We just need to have some consistency. What we're gonna do.
Philosophy too of our land use, not only solar, but wind and then cell towers and all these things that where do we want them and need them versus where does the company think it's profitable? Are we in control or are they in control?
Well, if you want electricity, I don't know what to say. It's evolving.
But I mean, again, do we control it from a land use perspective in our neighborhood? Or do we let them come in here and control it for us?
Well, that's why you have your commission. They're not steamrolling us by any means. But in Dodge County, they wanted to do a 320 acre solar farm.
They're doing a 1,400 acre.
Did they get it that big?
It's huge, yeah.
This is Dodge Center,
That's,
Dodge County.
Dodge County.
oh, I mean, yeah, Dodge, they're Dodge Center between.
Yeah, it's out there. And that's all pretty firm.
They're taking some of the best.
And that's Excel Energy too. So here we're, looking at 3.5 acres. And how big is it? 1,400? I know that you try to go farm to farm. And it's spending exponential amount of money for that. And why they're doing it is that parallels their lines with all their windmills they have by Dexter and all over. So that's all the same deal. And of course, they're going north to Minneapolis, St. Paul area. But again, let's talk about Winona County and how we want to handle this.
I make the motion.
And this motion is meaning we're going to have a discussion.
Waiting till our new planning director gets here. They may have some, I think our staff it's probably maxed out right now. So I mean, I think when we get,
Well, if we schedule a meeting to discuss it, we might have some organized thought to propose
Well,
in the
they-
next month.
they'll be here. It depends on how many petitions, of course, we have in May. I mean,
Right.
we have, the director will be here for June, so.
Yeah, I don't think we should delay while our interest in energies.
Well, our next meeting is going to be May, of course. We don't know what the petitions are
No.
this time. We don't
Any
know if
idea
we'll have
yet
a
at
solar
this
one.
point?
There may not be any.
Oh, so then,
That
Okay.
would be a good time to meet and
Yes.
just hash some stuff out. We're not gonna have a formal document
It
prepared.
was discussed, it's like heads up to the staff, heads up to you,
Yeah.
okay?
yeah.
And we're not putting anything on the line. This discussion, we're not sending anything to the county board. We just want to be a little more informative. What's up?
just don't turn every light in the house. Just turn them on.
I'm part of Amish, so don't worry about it.
You know where you're
I know,
at.
I got one light.
I make a motion, we close the meeting.
I want to get that new cap.
Are we clear on what we want to do at this work session though?
We put on railroad.
I guess I want to clarify, are we going to be discussing more about a performance standard or are we going to be discussing more about how we're going to augment ordinance to kind of fit what we're trying to
I
achieve?
don't think to change the ordinance is a long process.
Is it? Okay. thank you.
Here we're talking about a working session to help the 9 commissioners deal with it.
Sure.
But ordinance takes hearings,
Mhm.
that would go back and take a year to get anything done there.
Personally, I would just like more information or specific information during the permitting process.
So we could maybe put out a list of information that we'd like to see for every,
And that might be what we do if the staff is too busy, but whatever. I want to know what you guys need to see. Because we kind of go through multiple business plans of everyone. And rather than talk about who failed and what failed, let's talk about the petition. Because we don't know their business plan. And I do want the citizens of Winona County to have the ability to fail and not us not to tell them they can't do it. I mean, this is not how we should be managing. Because if somebody really has got a good idea and they're pretty talented, I have no right in my mind to tell him he doesn't have the ability, he or she doesn't have the ability to try something and fail. I mean, what is America about? And they might be successful and surprise you, you know? So, but land use is what we do. Okay, does that make sense? No, Arlie had a good thing. He wants a motion to adjourn.
Well, I have a motion on the table still, right?
Yeah, you seconded it.
Oh,
But,
I didn't hear.
and what we concluded was, we're gonna have a work session and just figure out how we can work with our own ordinance.
So are we gonna
Not change it.
Even if we don't have any petitions next month?
No,
We'll have it when we have.
when we have a meeting, and I'd like to designate just 20 minutes. Because you could go all night on this. I want us to get some feeling of reckoning that when we get these petitions, we can focus on the petition.
Get some ideas.
Well, all of us. Now, philosophically, we might not, any of us agree on any of it. That's not the point.
Right.
We're here to facilitate the
Throughout the
ordinance. Okay. And you made a motion to adjourn. We're adjourned.
I didn't hear nobody second.
We are